What if the behaviors we label as criminal are actually adaptations to survive in dangerous environments? Menace to Society is often remembered for its violence, its rawness, and its unfiltered look at life in South Central LA. But beneath the surface, the film offers something deeper. It asks a difficult psychological question. Are people shaped more by who they are or by what happens to them? Through a trauma-informed lens, the movie becomes a case study of how chronic exposure to violence can mold identity, limit perceived choices, and pass pain from one generation down to the next. Before I jump into the characters, I wanted to ground the conversation. The nature versus nurture debate explores whether behavior comes primarily from biology, so things like temperament, genetics, or from someone's environment, so their family, community, and even lived experiences. A trauma-informed perspective adds something crucial. It says, when a person is repeatedly exposed to danger, the brain and the body adapt for survival. These adaptations might look like aggression, emotional numbing, impulsivity, distrust, and even hypervigilance. In safe settings, these behaviors may seem extreme, but in unsafe environments, they can be life-preserving. So instead of asking, what's wrong with them, we should be asking, what happened to them? In Menace to Society, violence is not rare. It's routine. Death is witnessed young, police interactions are hostile, opportunities are limited, grief is constant, and this isn't just a backdrop for the story. It's an environment that keeps the nervous system on high alert at all times. And when stress is chronic, survival becomes the priority. Dreams, long-term plans, and abstract morality can start to feel distant or even unrealistic. Caine's character is one of the most powerful portrayals of trauma conflict in movies. As a child, he watches his father's violent lifestyle and his mother struggle with addiction. He loses his sense of safety early, he loses guidance, and yet, as a teenager, he is reflective. He questions things, and he even imagines a different future for himself. From the outside, this makes the viewers ask, if he knows better, then why doesn't he do better? This is where trauma kicks in. So trauma helps us understand that awareness alone doesn't equal escape. Caine has been shaped by normalized violence, unresolved grief, disrupted attachment, and friends who reinforce survival behaviors. Even when he gets a glimpse of a way out, his internal wiring and external pressures keep pulling him back toward what is familiar to him. Familiarity, even when it's destructive, can feel safer than the unknown. In the movie, we see Caine participate in behaviors such as becoming a street pharmacist and carjacking other people for their things. And this is a stark contradiction of what he actually wants. But this is what he's used to. This is what he's familiar with. Even though he wants a better future for himself, it's scary, it's stressful, it's unfamiliar to him. So he resorts back to these behaviors in order to feel some sense of normalcy in his life, rather than deal with that distress that's coming up in hopes of changing the outcome of his life. Unfortunately, we all know the outcome of Caine's story. When he eventually made plans to leave the state of California with his girlfriend Ronnie, it was under the circumstances that he was facing a life sentence for that robbery that occurred when the movie first started. In this context, he was trying to escape accountability and run away. However, in the midst of packing up and getting ready to leave, he was unalived due to behaviors that he partook in that came back to haunt him in the end. We don't get to learn too much about O-Dog's background, but he leaves us wondering whether he came into the world wired a little differently. Some people are born with hair-triggered nervous systems. They react fast, feel intensely, and chase adrenaline. In moments where others might hesitate, O-Dog puts his foot on the gas pedal and accelerates. Here's where nature becomes interesting. Two people can grow up in similar environments and still respond differently. One pauses, one explodes. Temperament might be a part of that difference. Does this mean he was born bad? No, but it does mean he may have been born with vulnerabilities that made certain reactions more likely. Understanding behavior doesn't mean approving of it, but through a trauma-informed lens, his behavior can be read as armor. If vulnerability equals danger, then dominance becomes protection. If people fear you, they are less likely to hurt you. The environment rewards his aggression with status and reputation. So he continues with this strategy. Sometimes what seems like cruelty is actually unspoken fear. Being born with an intense temperament in a high-stress environment can be a dangerous combination. Sharif's character spends time thinking deeply about his life. He values his spiritual side. He looks ahead and thinks about the future. He's not focused on short-term wins. He wonders who he could become in the future. While everyone else is focused on reputation and retaliation, Sharif thinks about finding a way out, doing what's right, and finding purpose with his life. He refuses the mindset of, this is how life is. Instead, he lives in, what if life could be different? In his neighborhood, people often prove their masculinity by showing dominance. Sherief risks looking weak. He talks openly about his faith, he thinks about the consequences of his actions, and he wants to see people stay safe and alive. But emotionally, this is real strength. This is regulation. This is a sign of maturity. Sherief is not an exception to nurture. He is evidence that nurture is complex. Your upbringing can hurt you, but it can also provide ways for you to protect yourself. But having tools doesn't always mean you're protected. Even though Sherief is hopeful, even though he makes better choices, and even though he acts with intention, the world around him is still more powerful than he is, which means that he represents something heartbreaking. Even though you do all the right things, this doesn't always keep you safe. In a psychological context, protective factors are the conditions or traits that reduce the likelihood of negative outcomes, even when someone is surrounded by risk. In Menace to Society, each individual has some protection, just not always enough. Caine's grandparents represent stability, structure, and accountability. Ronnie, his girlfriend, models nurturing and form of escape. Even Ronnie's son, Anthony, is a protective factor for Caine because children represent innocence. And when Caine spends time with Anthony, it gives him a chance to be vulnerable and show love and accept love from somebody that has not been traumatized from his environment yet. He also has moments of reflection when he questions his life, and he has opportunities. Going to Atlanta with Ronnie, or going to Kansas City with Stacy and Sharif. These are literal exit strategies for him. So, why doesn't all these protective factors protect him? All of his supports arrive after violence has already normalized itself in his identity. He can imagine leaving, but he struggles to imagine becoming someone new. Old Dog is interesting because he appears to have no protective factors, but psychologically he actually does. They just look a little different. He has a reputation and people fear him. This keeps other people from challenging him. He has pure loyalty, which coincides with belonging and having status. He emotionally numbs himself, which reduces his vulnerability to things. And he's super hypervigilant, which is survival awareness, which is something he needs in his environment. These strategies protect him in the short term because they keep him alive in immediate situations. However, this doesn't protect him in the long run because they don't build future stability and they prevent his growth, him having intimacy, and him having safe exits. Sharif's dad represents a structured, educated, and caring alternative to the chaos that he has going on in his neighborhood. He's also driven by his Islamic faith, has a moral framework, which is honesty, justice, and compassion. He is future-oriented, meaning he has hope for his future. And he believes in relocation. He doesn't believe he's stuck in his environment, and he knows that he needs to leave. He also shows a willingness to question the norms that he grew up with, and also help other people try to challenge those beliefs as well. So, why isn't this enough? Well, because internal change does not erase external exposure. He is psychologically stronger, but not systematically shielded. One of the biggest misconceptions about people in violent environments is the belief that they can simply just leave. But trauma can narrow a person's sense of possibility. When the brain is focused on immediate survival, future consequences feel abstract, opportunities feel fragile or unrealistic. Loyalty and reputation feel urgent. The risk of losing protection today can outweigh the promise of safety tomorrow. So the question becomes less about willpower and more about resources, timing, and support. Listen, I want to make one thing clear. Looking at situations through a trauma-informed lens does not remove responsibility. People are accountable for harm, but accountability hits differently when we understand that the playing field was never equal. Understanding behavior helps us respond with strategy instead of judgment. What makes Menace to Society relatable is that its themes are still visible today. Communities continue to face concentrated poverty, exposure to violence, underfunded mental health programs, and limited pathways to mobility. We still see trauma misread as defiance. We still expect regulation for people who were never taught safety. The film reminds us that untreated trauma doesn't disappear. It replicates. By the time we reach the ending of the movie, we're not just watching consequences, we're witnessing accumulated loss. Lost chances, lost childhood, lost support, and lost time. The outcome feels inevitable, not because the characters were doomed by nature, but because their environment kept causing the same harm over and over again. Perhaps the most important question the film leaves us with are these. If someone's environment can shape a life this deeply, what responsibility do we have to help create safer ones? How might things have been different if healing had come sooner? What if there had been stronger protection? What if survival wasn't the only skill someone could rely on? Menace to Society doesn't give us easy answers, but when we look at it through a trauma-informed lens, the film asks us to replace judgment with understanding and to see behavior not just as a choice, but as part of someone's history.